We're going to get started here in just a minute. If you would please return to your seats for the second half of our forum. So with me on the stage now are two Jefferson County Supervisor candidates, the incumbent Republican Dick Reed and his independent challenger Jack Finn. Just like in the first half of the forum, the person to whom the question is posed will have 2 minutes. Their opponent will have 1 minute to rebut, and then both candidates will have 2 minutes for closing remarks.
That's trouble.
So without further ado, this first question is for Jack Finn. And Mr. Finn, do you support the county's master matrix scoring system as a way of ensuring CAFOs, confined animal feeding operations, meet environmental and public health standards before building in the county? And should the county do more to control CAFO operations?
Yeah, you know, they can hear you out there a lot better than we can hear you. I don't know what you mean.
Okay, so the question is about, should the county do more to control CAFO operations? And particularly if you support the county's master matrix scoring system.
Number one, I'm not familiar with the master matrix scoring system, but I believe... Louder? Okay.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay.
How am I doing now?
Good.
Okay. Because I can hardly see your faces if you smile. Okay, so I'm not familiar with the matrix system, but as county supervisor, I'm going to have to get familiar with that system. And I do believe, I absolutely, positively believe in local control. The county needs to be involved with this CAFO issue. The county needs to be involved with local control. The county needs to be involved as opposed to the state for the things that happen within the county. I'm very, very strong on this. I have seen before what happens when you get outside interests dictating to the people of the county what their rules are going to be. I think the county is the one that's got to dictate to those who come into the county what their rules are going to be, not the other way around.
Before we go to Mr. Reed, I want to go through a couple of points of order that we discussed at the beginning of the forum. We're going to hold our applause until the very end. And if you in the audience have questions, you can submit them in writing. Just raise your hand, and one of our ushers, raise your hands and wave. They are walking around passing out note cards and pens, and they'll gladly give you one. So just, if you have a question, write it on the note card and submit it. And if we have time, we'll get to it tonight. Now, Mr. Reed, you have 1 minute to respond to that. What is your attitude toward CAFOs? Do you think the county needs to do more to control them?
Well, you first asked about my master matrix plan. Jefferson County has an option if they're a member of the master matrix plan. Jefferson County did decide to be part of that, and that gives us a scoring system on animal confinements over a certain number of animal units. And we've used it several times in Jefferson County. We've had public hearings on it. And that seems to work okay, but that does not take in consideration animal confinements that's under the state, under this matrix plan. So, and I think that's what has people concerned is, so I got 10 seconds, she says. So that's what has people concerned. And it would be nice if we could have some type of control. She says,
Okay. Well, I'm sure CAFOs are a very common topic and may come up later.
Well, then let us talk a little longer.
Okay, Mr. Reed, this question is for you. In recent history, a number of commercial and residential developments have sprung up in the countryside seemingly for the sole purpose of avoiding higher Fairfield city taxes. Do you support such non-ag development in rural areas, or should the county adopt zoning to direct this growth to appropriate locations?
I have 2 minutes, right? Okay. I used to be on city council. I served on planning and zoning for 12 years before I come to city council. I am not opposed to zoning, but 20 years ago, they brought zoning up in Jefferson County, and it was overwhelming, voted out. The people wanted to take and be able to use their land the way they wanted to. And that's the rules that I'm still living under as a board of supervisor. Now, people like to do what they want to with their land, but then they aren't very happy when their backdoor neighbor does something they don't like. So the only way you're going to control that is by implementing zoning. And that takes an act of everybody in the county. So there you have it. If this county truly wants zoning, we should have it. I've never, since I've been a board supervisor for 12 years now, I've never had anybody come into the boardroom and say, Dick, let's go after zoning. I've had a lot of people complain, but I've never had a person say, let's go after zoning. It's a tough deal. There's somebody that's getting a junkyard built in their backyard. We have a lady right here that's not very happy because there's something going on in her backyard that she doesn't like. But the way it stands right now, I don't have the local control to control it. I have to live by a set of rules and regulations for you folks.
Okay. Mr. Finn, what are your thoughts on zoning? Do you think that the county should adopt zoning?
Well, this is another issue that I've had to really do some research in. I have a team that does a lot of research, in constitutional aspects of for the county. And from what I'm being told is that the people that voted down zoning were absolutely 100% correct in what they did. Because what we're finding out is that zoning is really unconstitutional. And I am all for doing things according to our Constitution. Now, with that said, we have to understand, go back to my first point in my platform. Again, that's local control. And if the people say no zoning, then that's what the people mean, no zoning. I guess as a supervisor, we're going to have to understand that we have to live with what we're being told to do. It's that simple. And as supervisor, that's what I'm going to do. You listen to the people, and you do what they say.
All right, thank you, Jack. And Jack, this question is for you. You'll have 2 minutes to respond, and I think you'll have 1 minute to rebut. Now that Heartland Co-op is well under construction, is there anything you would do as a supervisor to mitigate the effects of the grain elevator on neighbors?
Well, you have to understand, I'm coming in this late in the game. Is there anything I would do? I think the attitude of most people right now is waiting to see what is really going to happen. But in reality, there's a lot that's already happening with other grain elevators. And this is something that we really need to pay attention to, because there's one up in, I believe it's Muscatine. In Muscatine, they had an issue up there where 17,000 people, and that's more people up in Muscatine than there is in all of our county right here in Jefferson. But they brought a lawsuit against the grain elevator. The lower courts threw that court case out. They continued the process and they went to the Iowa Supreme Court, and guess what? The Iowa Supreme Court said, no, the case will continue. So we've got a lot to learn what's possibly going to be happening here in the very near future about that grain elevator. And I couldn't do anything about it before, But I know that if I'm elected as supervisor, I'm going to have to do something about it in the future.
And Mr. Reed, your response.
Well, I'd truly like to know what the Board of Supervisors can do about it. Yes, I've been a Board of Supervisors for 12 years. I've studied it, I've looked at it, I've talked with the Leahys, I've run meetings at the courthouse, at least 3 different meetings that have filled the courtroom with people on both sides. It comes right down to the use of a person's personal land. They had every right in the world to take and build where they did. I respect the ladies that they're not happy about it. I probably wouldn't be happy either if I owned that land. But it comes down to the law of the land, and
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We've been receiving a lot of questions about Heartland, so don't worry if you feel that we're receiving a lot of questions about Heartland. Mr. Reed, this one is for you. When did Jefferson County first find out about the elevator development east of town? And when should the public be informed about these kinds of developments?
the first time the Board of Supervisors, first of all, Board of Supervisors do not get to talk unless they're in a public meeting. That's called the open meetings law. That means 2 supervisors together is not supposed to have a communication. So the first time legally we found out about it was when Heartland came to the board meeting, and I can't tell you what that date is. The CEO and the next guy, they came and set up their board meeting and told us their intentions. It hit the newspaper then. That's the first time we knew about it officially. We heard people that were going to the coffee shop were hearing a lot more about it than what we were, because there was some economic development talk that was going on. And in economic developments, the Board of Supervisors don't get to sit on those meetings. There might be one supervisor that sits on those meetings as a liaison, but he can't tell the supervisors what's going on until it's put on the agenda. So that was the first. We heard about it, we told the public, and there has been some misinformation that we knew something before we could tell the public. I think probably Mr. Leahy probably knew more about it than I did. But that we have to work under the open meetings law. That's a law that's mandated by Iowa, and we honor and respect that. We put it on the agenda, and then we discuss it. And I think that's probably appropriate. It's a little hard to do business sometimes that way, but that's the way we do it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Finn, your response.
And I think it's very important to understand is that the issue that we really have here is that people think that things were done in private. And if you look at some of the things that are going around the state, this is not just an issue here, if this truly is an issue. I don't know what it is, whether it is not an issue. I don't know whether a lot of backroom deals have been made. I do know what the papers say. I do know that there is a lot of corporate interference that will say with communities. Again, we're going back to local control. If there are some kind of ordinances or rules or laws about how we are to conduct our business, then I think they need to be changed, because I think the people need to really know what's going on so that they can be informed. Because I was told that you probably found out about it only 4 months before actually something happened.
Okay. All right, so I'll have to stop there.
Okay.
Mr. Finn, this question is for you. will you promise to cut property taxes if elected supervisor? And if not, why not?
Property taxes, yes. I do believe that property taxes ought to be cut. The first time that I ever heard what was going on about property taxes, I met a guy in Hy-Vee. He's got a small house. He said his assessment went up $19,000 this year. The taxes went up almost $600. He can't understand it. You know, in the day and age in which we live, you know, people are hurting. There's not a lot of money out there being generated. Things are down. Why not back up with a tax cut and help the people out in the county? As I look at the ordinances, I understand that the county supervisors have a role in playing in tax assessments.
All right, Mr. Reed, what are your thoughts on property taxes? Will you promise to cut them?
Well, sure I want to cut them. You know, I don't like paying high property taxes myself. I live in the city limits of Fairfield, and I think my property taxes are plenty high. Out in the county, which the Board of Supervisors control, they're fairly reasonable. We try to take and run bare bones, and which Jack will find out if he becomes the Board of Supervisor. We start working on them in January, and we go over every single line. And so we look at the budget, we look at our income, we look at our outgo, and we try to take and run it as best we can. And we're always trying to take and cut. There's not very much fat there on the county side, but we try to cut. And you can see, if you go back and look, we do cut taxes. So we do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Reed, do you believe the county grades the gravel roads too much? And if so, what can be done about this?
County roads are dusty when they're dry. When they're wet, they get muddy. I've had people complain both. I don't have enough gravel. I have too much gravel. We have 7 maintainers out there. We have 650 miles of gravel road. I would like to pave them all. They are too darn dusty. But gravel is a material that breaks down and makes dust. Sure, they're too dusty. I'll agree. But we haven't figured out a real good way of not making that dust happen. I do not jump into the maintainer and ride with the maintainer operator. That's called micromanaging. I hire and fire the county engineer, and that's his job. I think he's sitting right out there someplace. And we talk about this a lot, to have the appropriate amount of gravel on the roads. Don't put too much on, but if we don't put enough on, we'll have a situation like we did about 3 or 4 winters ago when the bottom falls out. I'm getting a call, Mr. Reed, I cannot get to my house. This lady's talking on a cell phone, and she's driving with one hand. She says, I'm going to go in the ditch. And I said, well, put the phone down, grab all with both hands, and then call me when you get home. I'll come out, I'll take my 4-wheel drive pickup, I'll come out, I'll look at the road, and we'll try to get some big rock on it or something. It's an ongoing process. So, yes, the roads are too dusty.
And Mr. Finn, how do you feel about how the county roads are graded?
I've got a little bit of a limited experience and knowledge about that. I will say this, I think county roads, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know if you all know it, but I've got experience as a minister and experience as a pilot. I used to fly out of Fairfield, and one of the things that I used to look at all the time was how good your roads were if I had to put that airplane down someplace on a gravel road. And I'll tell you what, I'd sure like to have them well maintained if I'm going to save any passengers or airplane equipment to have to do that. And Mr. Reeder's right, I've been in some of the, at least one, where one supervisor meeting where one guy complained about being too dusty, another lady complained about being too much dirt. Wow. But you know what? People still have to be heard, and you still have to make those decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Finn, your biography indicates you've been a Jefferson County resident since 2011. What assurances can you give the public that you are familiar with Jefferson County and the issues it faces?
Well, I tell you, over the last couple of months, I've sure become a whole lot more familiar with the issues because I have people coming up to me in the streets, and believe it or not, the one main thing that they want to talk about all the time is the roads. And all I can do is to say, well, you know, when I become supervisor, one thing for sure that I can do is I'm going to make sure that your voice is heard. That's our job. And then somehow, with the funds available and with the equipment that we already have, let's go ahead and take care of some of those roads that some people have a real issue with. I don't know if anybody knows about Lockridge. I've been on the Lockridge Road, and I know where the county line is because you can tell by the condition of the road on one side and the other. And I have some people who want me to do something about it if I get in. So as county supervisor, all I can say is, let's take these issues one at a time. And as the fact that I've only been here 3 years, I've been in Iowa since 1974. I've been in Iowa longer than I've been anywhere else. I've only had 3 years outside of Iowa since 1974, and that was to go to school. I have a son who was born in Iowa. I have 2 grandsons who were both born in Iowa. Jefferson County, part of Iowa. As supervisor, you better believe I want to take care of Jefferson County.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, I guess you tell us about the experience you have living in Jefferson County. 1 minute. Well, your response. Just a response and tell us about your experience in Jefferson County.
Okay. It's not that roads is rocket science. There's 99 counties, and all 99 counties have about the same problems. But I will say to Jack, it takes a while to learn about our roads. I listen, and I listen very careful. You can call me any time of the day. I prefer maybe not after 11 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning, but you can literally call me and I will listen to you. Talk about somebody to listen. Thanksgiving Day, I had somebody call me at noon and wanted to talk about this Heartland situation, and he was talking about roads. Okay,
you have to move on.
I called him back at 5 o'clock.
Mr. Reed, do you believe the county devotes enough money to funding secondary roads? What is your plan for improving them?
Okay, little do most people know that your property taxes that you pay, that you would like for me to cut, fund roads very little. Most of it comes from the state and federal government. Farm to market. We buy most of the gravel, some of the gravel farm to market, most of the gravel with your local tax dollars. We do the patching with your local tax dollars. But when you see us go out and do a project like we did the Pleasant Plain Road, we just did 185th, which we've been wanting to do for a long time. I hate to badmouth any supervisors, but there was a set of supervisors that never did 185th right. I hope I live long enough to see 185th go bad. Because I told the engineer, you better fix it, you better fix it right. We're tired of that bad road. Dialogue right that goes on about our roads. We added a little money to the road fund last year. It was mainly so we had equipment to work on the roads. 95% of our budget, or not maybe 95, but a large portion of the budget, is like a lot of budgets, it's labor. We had a labor force cut down Jackie was out to the office there yesterday. A snitch told me. And you're checking out, you see we got 3 people in the office. All the rest was a mechanic out there. We got 2 guys on the sign truck, 7 maintainers out there, and all the rest are out there patching the roads. I'm sorry, talking to them.
Mr. Finn, do you think Jefferson County is spending enough money on secondary roads?
I don't know. I'll just tell you. But I'll tell you what, if I get in to be county supervisor, I will find out, and I will check that budget, and I will take a look at it very, very closely. Again, I've got a research team. They research this stuff. They come up with a lot of stuff. And if there's any money to be had to increase that, without increasing your taxes, backing your taxes up, because once you back your taxes up, you increase the business in the town, because businesses will come here, and your taxes will go up automatically once you increase your business. So as county supervisor, all I can say is I'm going to take a real close look at it. And yes, I was at the county engineer's office yesterday, and I knew someone would snitch on me. So I was really careful with the questions that I asked. You ought to hear what they said about you, Dick.
As long as it was the truth.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. This is for Mr. Finn. You say your goal is to keep Jefferson County pristine. What is your definition of pristine, and what would you do to achieve that goal?
Well, first of all, the whole quote of that pristine didn't come from me. It came from somebody. I was out playing softball one day, and I was telling people that I was running for the Jefferson County Supervisor position, and I just asked them, I said, what would be your goal for Jefferson County? He just said a real short sentence. He said, keep it pristine. So I used that. And I did have somebody ask me told me what the definition of pristine was, and they said it goes back to the original condition. And someone was telling me that the original condition was back in teepees and Indians and that sort of thing. I don't think that was the purpose of the comment that the guy gave me, was to bring it back to the Indians. But I will say this, we have an issue here in Jefferson County, and it concerns our rivers and our lands and our air and all of the quality and the food. And when I say pristine, I don't mean just let's preserve what we have today. I say, look, let's take a look at this thing a little bit more carefully. And let's back up to when it was good rivers, good water, good food. And as a supervisor, that is going to be one of my primary things that I will do to keep Jefferson County backing up to be pristine.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, your response.
Pristine. I won't take it as far as somebody else took it. I see that as having a nice, clean community to live in. And I think that's probably what you meant. And I think that's good. I'm for water quality. Maybe you looked at the list of committees I sit on. There's one I sit on that's just about all we deal with is water quality. We're trying to get rid of a bridge, build a dam, make a pond of water for wildlife, and to maintain good quality water so we don't get water runoff. We do a lot to take and try to keep the county nice and clean. We passed an ordinance. So if you're going to do a subdivision and it's out in the county, you're going to have to take, first of all, it can be only a such and such type of soil. If it's good tillable soil, you can't put a subdivision on it.
Mr. Reed, just following up on that question, does the county do enough to ensure a clean environment? And what would you do differently as a supervisor than what has been done in the past? Yes, you.
Oh, well, so we've done certain things in the past, but I think you keep working off of it. We had a niche there where a lot of entrepreneurs were moving to town and they were wanting to take and put a subdivision here and a subdivision here and a subdivision here. And we found out all of a sudden we had a bunch of parcels out there. And if you miles on a gravel road to get to it, man, that's a lot of dust. And the people that live on that road were gonna get pretty upset. So we changed that ordinance so that if you're gonna do that subdivision out there, you have to make a dust-proof road to get to it. Plus, we use the CSR, that's corn suitability ratio, that's a way of creating soil, the quality of it, and if it's a good tillable soil, let's not build on it. Let's save that soil, because the soil is the dirt, is the gold of the earth. If you don't have good soil, we're all going to starve to death. So we have to maintain soil, we have to maintain our waterways, and it's all we have. And when we don't do it, we're in trouble. We have to have a good quality of life here in Jefferson County, in Iowa, and the whole United States. That's all I can do.
Mr. Finn, your response.
Okay, would you do me a favor and repeat that one more time?
The question was, do you believe the county is doing enough to ensure a clean environment?
Personally, I think more can be done. And this actually gets to one of the issues that I see, and one of the reasons that I'm running, and if I might be so bold as to just to get to an issue that I see that needs to be addressed. In Jefferson County, we have one of the most unique places in the world. We have such a diverse culture right here, especially in Fairfield, a diverse culture. And with that diverse culture, you know what you get? You get a lot of people that can have some input into the county, and I don't think some of the voices are being heard. And I think what we do is we harness this combination of people from different parts of the country. I remember I've already been castigated for being from out of town or being from the East Coast and that sort of thing. And, but even though I've lived here,
Sorry, we have to move on.
time's up.
Mr. Finn, this is another Heartland question. Will this Heartland Co-op lead to a net loss to the county as taxpayers foot the bill for increased road wear and tear?
Okay, again, it's really, really echoing.
Okay. Will the startup of Heartland Co-op lead to a net loss to the county as taxpayers foot the bill for increased road wear and tear?
I think on the surface, as the county supervisor, I would have to look at that very seriously. And again, on the surface, I think it would. I think, well, how can I say? My background, I also have an engineering background. A lot of that wasn't brought out. I worked for Texas Instruments as a senior engineering technician. That means I was one step below an engineer. I did a lot of work with Texas Instruments. Do a lot of work with physics and that sort of thing. And it doesn't take, what do they call it? It doesn't take a rocket scientist or a rocket surgeon to be able to see that stuff like that is going to cost a lot of money. And the road system that we have now, even with the little repairs, I think is going to be a major problem. And I heard that no traffic study was done. Is this true? I heard that there was a lot of studies that weren't done. Is that true? Then we have some issues down the line if it's true, because we're not prepared for them. We need to get prepared.
Mr. Reed, can you speak to that issue of the traffic study and summarize your views on Heartland and its effects on the county roads?
Sure, I'd love to speak on it. So, we had been told that, I've had people say, well, you did a stack. We tried to treat the co-op the same as we treated Cambridge, because those were the two larger developments that we've had in the county, and we tried to be fair and equitable. Somebody said we did a study for Cambridge, or a study. What we did, after Cambridge was built, we took and decided we wanted to take and maybe put a turn lane in for them. So at that time, they were up and running, full power, and we did a road study done any studies, get the thing up and running so we have something to study, so we can figure out where the real traffic is going to be. Then we'll do the study.
Next question is for Mr. Reed. Short of zoning, would you be in favor of county ordinances requiring building permits and separate traffic studies and environmental impact studies when a proposed project exceeds certain thresholds, such as a height limit or a decibel limit?
Oh, we have a height limit now, so we do. Mr. Penn knows that because he flies an airplane. We don't have a building code, so I think what you're asking me, would I be willing to implement a building code and a building inspector, and if you're going to do that, you're going to have zoning. So, I mean, if that's what the county truly wanted, I could work for that, but I honestly don't think, I think the people enjoy their freedom out in Jefferson County. I think it's a small enough county, they know who the contractor is that they want to hire, they hire them, they work with them closely, they trust them, and they don't have the bureaucracy telling them what to do. And I think they truly enjoy that. So, but I represent 16,000 people in the county, and if I get a different feel sometime, I'll probably work that direction. But I have to it's these people out here that I work for. It's just not me. I was elected by the people of Jefferson County to work for them. And so I have to listen to see what they want. Now, it is true, every now and again, I hear, well, a lot of times, I hear from the loud minority, not the silent majority. And so that's the tough thing as a board of supervisor, to see who to listen to. That's the tough thing about it. Thank you.
Mr. Finn, do you have any thoughts on the county requiring building permits and traffic studies and that sort of thing?
Well, building permits, traffic studies, and all of these things, this is all part of the Board of Supervisors. It is part of what the county does. But I would like to say that the one thing that we really should never, ever, ever overlook is the fact that in a community, especially the one that we have right here in Jefferson County, with the abilities that we see and the people and the studies that they have done and the organizations that they have, then guess what? If there's a problem in the community, the people are the answer. And if the people come up with ordinances and whatever they want to put in so that we take those corporations and those outside interests and then make them do what we want them to do, not the other way around. And as supervisor, I'm going to make sure that the people get a voice to be heard about this. I don't think we're being heard.
Thank you. So we have time for 2 more questions. Mr. Finn, do you think a feasibility study needs to be done on the impact of the Heartland Co-op facility on Jefferson County's quality of life in terms of air and noise pollution, traffic flow, and the economy? If so, would you support a moratorium on its construction until these studies are done and assessed?
Well, the answer to that is pretty easy. That should have already been done. Because as we look out there, we can see all these other grain elevators, we can see, I mean, this thing is huge. This thing is huge. And you're going to build something like that without a study on the roads, without a study on the quality of air that you're going to be breathing, the noise that you're going to hear. There was some serious lapse in somebody's judgment. Or maybe there was some very serious behind-the-door dealings that made it just not important to be done, to have these studies required. Why would there even be a question after it's being built? As a county supervisor, and if I have anything to say about it, I think that those things
have been transparent. I've bent over backwards to listen and to hear and to care.
Please hold your applause.
No, don't clap. Now, it is your right to not agree with my statement. It's your right. I'm honest as the day is long, and to ever say that I ever took a backdoor penny is incorrect. Now, there can be a different opinion on if there should have been a study done or not. I'll debate that, but don't ever call me a liar or a chief. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is the final question. Mr. Reed, does the county have any way to mitigate the pollution of the city sewer system?
For us to mitigate the city sewer system, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess you continue to work with the city and make sure that they do their due diligence. And I know the city is working hard on it now. They're designing practically a new system. They're spending millions of dollars. But we need to continue to have a good dialogue with the city. It's very important. When I came from city council to board of supervisors, that was one of my challenges. I said I wanted to keep a open door policy between the city and the county. So sure, that's an open dialogue we can have, yes.
Mr. Finn, your response?
I guess I just, this one here, I agree with Dick Reed. I guess plain and simple. You know, if there's some way to mitigate it, we can help out, let's do it.
Right, that concludes the Q&A portion of tonight's forum, and now we'll move into closing arguments. So, Mr. Finley, we'll start with you for 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, let me just say that I was never accusing Mr. Reed of anything underhanded. What I am talking about is, you see, I've been involved in a huge project that was supposed to have been done in southeast Iowa some years ago. And it's an aviation project. We were trying to bring in what they call an international intermodal facility. We wanted to bring in a cargo airport. There was a difference of opinion where it should be built. And one of the things that I was involved in is to make sure that all these studies were being done. This is why I say this, that we need to look into this. What exactly transpired? Because I couldn't proceed with wanting to build a project of this magnitude. And by the way, the only reason why we would stop is because the very day that we were to receive funds to do a feasibility study, it happened on 9/11/2001. And so the project was out the door. But one of the things that was brought up at some of the meetings was to be careful that you are not even appearing to be negligent about your duties. That you don't have to be a thief, you don't have to be a crook, but if you don't take everything into consideration, you could be considered negligent. And you know what that does? It hurts the people. So you got to have some common sense. And that's my platform. Local control, common sense deals with your perceptions, your knowledge, your judgments, that everybody in your community understands when you converse with them. Simply put, it's being a good neighbor. And of course, the preservation of our quality of life. This is why a lot of people come here. This is what I want to do as supervisor, maintain that.
Thank you, Mr. Finn. Mr. Reed, your closing remarks.
Is this our final thing?
Your final remarks.
Is this the final thing?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. I don't care if you're for or against me. I don't think this is about Jefferson County. It's about 16,000 plus people. I have never on somebody's door and says, "Can I do your project?" I never did that. From the day I started driving nails, I did a job where people knew me, got to know me, and trusted me, and told somebody else what Dick Reed could do for them. And that would always get me another job. And I built a lot of fine quality homes here in Fairfield. Matter of fact, they have a handle on them. They're called Reed Homes. People are starting to move out of them now because they're going to nursing homes. Until then, they didn't sell. They lived in them for life. And that's the way I treat Jefferson County. I treat it with my heart and soul. I was born and raised, my grandparents lived here. I think you all read probably in the newspaper, that I've been here for a long time. I care about the community. I am a listener. I look in the morning, wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, and the only thing I see, I get a few more gray hairs and a few more wrinkles, but I tell myself, what's your job today? And it is to listen. It's to listen to each one of you. It's okay if you have a different opinion. It's mine to decipher your opinion and work with the other 2 board members to come up with the best solution. And that's what a board of supervisor does. He doesn't stand by himself. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Well, I want to thank everyone for spending their evening with us, and I hope that you learned something about local government along the way. I extend a special thank you to the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center for donating this space to us, and to our sponsoring organizations, FIDA, the Chamber, and the Fairfield Ledger, for making this happen. I'd also like to thank candidates for sharing their views with us. And as a final reminder, Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. So take the knowledge that you've acquired tonight and use it in the ballot box. And with that, I bid you all a good night.
I didn't get my $5. Busy talking.